Okay, so I heard you.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you. Can you hear
Yeah,
me?
yeah, this is perfect.
Nice.
Welcome. Lisa Shaw has been involved with machine embroidery education and inspiration since the mid-90s. Prior to her current independent instructor status, she was the tech support manager for Buzz Tools for 15 years, traveling worldwide teaching and promoting their software programs. These days, you can find her blogging about machine embroidery at her digital home, sew-bubbles.com, where you will find links to her Facebook page, blog, and YouTube channel. Online teaching has been an exciting adventure, from her class on Craftsy to presenting at the Sewing Party and soon to launch webinar series. Lisa's teaching philosophy has always been that the computer is a tool just like an oven. It's not the smart one or the artistic one in the machine embroidery partnership, and we just need to treat the computer like a tool, not a magic gizmo. Okay, welcome to the Sewpreneur series brought to you by BERNINA. My name's Olivia Omega, and I am interviewing sewpreneurs from around the country just to get some tips and inspiration on how to take your hobby, whether that's crafting, sewing, whatever that may be, creative hobby, and turn it into a business. So today I have with us Lisa Shaw. She is a sewer, and specifically she loves computer or machine embroidery. And I met her a couple years ago at the Sewing Summit, which was a blogging summit for sewers. And we happen to live in the same state, which is kind of cool. A little ways apart, but we're both in Colorado. So I'm introduced to Lisa Shaw. She's been doing machine embroidery for 20 years, 20 plus years now, and has been doing tons of online workshops. We'll have her talk about them a little bit in a little bit with Craftsy even, which is also a Denver company. I love that Denver's just so on the map with regard to sewing and creativity. But Lisa, thank you for coming. If you want to just say hi and welcome everyone.
Yes, thanks for having me. It's been a great honor to be asked to talk about what I love to do, and it's nice that I can actually do this from my house.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the one of the big things about being able to do what I do with machine embroidery or sewing is that I get to work from home.
That's wonderful. And I'm loving technology these days, Google Hangouts. We're working through some kinks, but that's amazing as well. And just being able to learn from people taking online classes, which is what you do and you focus on, is teaching people from the comfort of your home on this snowy day here in Colorado.
Yes.
But if you can start off and just let us know how you got into sewing, when you started, and then how did you go from that into your love and passion for machine embroidery?
Oh, wow. I guess I started sewing, I was little, and I took classes at the girls club in Connecticut. That's where I'm originally from, is Connecticut. And sewing's always been a big part of my life as far as I'd like to make things. I like to take things apart, but I do like to put them back together again. So I paid my quarter every week and I learned how to sew. And then my dad told me when I was getting to be in teenage years that he would buy me all the fabric I wanted. He thought, well, that would cut down the clothing bill. And little did he know that it became a passion. And if I had fabric, I was not afraid to try anything, to make my own clothes and just have something different than anybody else had. And that's the best thing I love about sewing and embroidery and even the computerized part, because I get to customize, I get to make it mine, and it will be like nobody else's. And I like to be a little unique. That's my thing. So my husband and I were living in Maryland, and he retired from the Army, and we moved out to Colorado, and I had to find a job. So my background is in computers. I worked for the Pentagon doing computer war simulations, and that has absolutely nothing to do with sewing or machine embroidery, but it's what my degree was in math. I came out here and we lived out a little further from the city, and it wasn't very convenient for me to work a 9-to-5 job in town. So I started my own business doing computer consulting, and I did crafting on the sides. So many of you may do those winter craft shows for the holidays. And I started out making vests, and these were for people getting married, for the groomsmen, wearing their favorite sports team, their favorite color, whatever it was. And I would make them the entire wedding party, matching vests, bow ties, whatnot. And that's what I started doing out here in Colorado, in addition to the craft shows. And I needed a new machine because mine would only go 55 miles an hour, and I needed to go faster. And this was back in the early 90s. And I went to the sewing machine store, and they had this, it was a new baby lock sewing and embroidery machine. I was like, you can do embroidery? And I had seen little pictograms. I wasn't interested in that. But they said, oh, yes. And they showed me this scanner unit that you had to do color separations and scan in each one individually. I'm like, oh, that's way too hard. Don't you have something that hooks up to the computer? Because I had used computers. That had to be. He's like, oh, well, in a few months there will be. Sold. I wrote my check, bought the machine, and said, I'm the first one in line to get that software. Well, back then there weren't classes because there was no home embroidery market. There was no one doing this. So I went out on the internet and did my little search and found a couple of these, what we called back then, user groups. And they were chat rooms, sort of, in a rudimentary level, no pictures, very text-like, but there were people all over the country that were getting into machine embroidery. And I hooked up with them, and we all learned from each other. And it was an amazing experience because it was completely all on the internet. We knew more about what was going on with the software than anybody did, because we were up at 2 o'clock in the morning talking with each other when the dealer's asleep. So we really did a lot of investigating. And during that time, I met up with this other woman named Lisa, and she had a computer science background, and she had done programming on the side as well. And she had come up with this program called Buzz Tools, which allowed us, the different machines, to communicate with each other. Because way back when, if you had a Bernina, you could only use Bernina stuff. And if you had a Viking, you could only use Viking stuff. Well, this Buzz Tools let the Berninas and the brothers talk to each other. That means I can use what they have, and they can use what I have. So it was really kind of a neat experience. And she said, when she started selling this program, we had never met in person. We had only done this chatting on the internet. And she says, how would you like to get paid for answering all these questions that you're doing? Sounds like a plan to me. Yay! So I started working with Buzz Tools, and I worked with them for 15 years, answering all their support, doing all their development, working with them to come up with new ideas for programs, because it's just something that I enjoyed doing. So, that was just the first stepping stone.
That's awesome. I love when you can combine the best of both worlds. Two things that you really love. You loving, computer science and technology with sewing, and then the worlds come together, and it's not like it just kind of fell in your lap. That's awesome. Really
did. It was, when people talk about internet-based companies, and internet-based machine embroidery really is all internet-based. It's an international, worldwide. It's amazing.
That's great. That's awesome. So I was just thinking about it. So that's what you did. You worked there for about 15 years. And so now you're on your own. What do you do now? How has that kind of transformed from answering questions and helping people on the tech side to what you do today?
Well, I've always been independent. And that's been a kind of a blessing for me, because I have a sponge in this between these ears, and I love to understand the why. So I used to do all the tech support. I did the education. I did the inspiration, getting people to see what they could do, how that computer is fun. And when I left Buzz Tools, the reason I did was because I wanted to challenge myself. and I needed to find something that would push me a little further than what I had been doing. So I started marketing myself, and it's a little tough to do and step out of that comfort zone because I'm very comfortable with the computer and I can make all the software dance, but it was hard for me to market myself as someone who could help other people do that. And it's been a fun journey so far. The Craftsy class has been an amazing experience for me, and writing articles for the magazines and being in the sewing party. There's just been the online community has just been it's huge, and it's how do I say, a challenge to figure out what people want and how to address what they need.
Right. And I'll say, it's so funny. I see the Lisa Shaw brand all over the place. And so, you know, we're friends on Facebook. So I see you on Facebook, and then I signed up for the sewing party. And then I'm like, oh my gosh, she's teaching there. And then I saw like your kind of name pops up everywhere. So it's really cool to see the Lisa Shaw name and your brand. Personally, more so than I see Sew Bubbles, which is your URL, sewbubbles.com. The URL for your blog, which I will have links to everything so that everyone can kind of network and connect. But I guess two questions. What's the biggest challenge as far as, like you said, getting yourself out there and creating a name and a brand for yourself? And how have you done it?
Well, I will say that you were completely instrumental in this, because I went to the Sewing Summit with one goal in mind. I had just started out on my own and I didn't know what to do. I had always kind of hidden behind a company, and I could easily promote a company because it's software. I can tell them, but stepping out of that box was really kind of scary. And I'd taken your seminar and I took all the little notes and took my selfie of myself and said, okay, I need to promote Lisa Shaw. And it's been a fun process, a journey, I should say, and it's always changing and always growing, and new things are coming up. But getting out there and not being afraid to say, I'm Lisa Shaw, and I am qualified to do whatever it is that I need for you to do. I can teach you. I can, whatever it is that I need to promote. But saying that it's Lisa Shaw that's doing it has been the biggest challenge, because as a female or in a sewer, we are always so giving and maybe not wanting to take credit, and wanting to say, oh, well, it's just a software, you know, it does all the work. Well, no, it's the brain. It's you. You are the smart one in the equation. So trying to promote that, it has been I think we all face that challenge. And it's just been, there's no button I can push that says, this is how it's done.
Right. That is definitely the hardest challenge for people, but specifically for women, because we don't want to toot our own horns. We don't want to be arrogant or conceited or, you know, go off and talk about ourselves. But like you said, when you work for a company, you could talk about that company all day long, and you could sell a product and talk about why I use this shampoo, and this is why I shop here. And that, you know, when we're talking about abstract objects, when we talk about ourselves, it's really difficult. So I definitely commend you on doing that. You're doing an excellent job. Keep up the good work, for sure.
Thank you.
Going to that, when you talked about putting yourself out there and partnering, Craftsy is a great example of that, and even being written up in magazines. How do you go about getting those partnerships? You know, what do you do or what do you say in addition to, you know, Lisa Shaw is great at what she does?
Well, I have to keep one of the things is, in this particular area, I keep a list of everything I've done. And it's in my little, on my phone, because I don't remember. And it was a funny story. I was just at the Sew Expo in Puyallup, and I have a booth there where I sell the software and I teach the classes. And my mentor and gentleman that I work with, I promote his software, Brian, he's like, I'm showing him, he was not there. So I'm videotaping my booth and I'm showing him pictures. And he's like, this is your booth, Lisa. Where are you? I'm like, well, I'm right I hear? He's like, well, you need to make a little display area that tells, okay, you won the Craftsy Blogging Award. You have your cover on the magazine. This is what you've done. So I had to go through. I'm like, well, what did I do? I said, I had forgotten everything. So keeping a list of what your accomplishments are, no matter how big or how small, it's something that you can pull on. And by having that little, I made a little sign, put it in a little metal frame that I picked up at the dollar store and put it in my booth. Another promoter came by and happened to see it and read through my little thing and started a conversation about something that he would have never talked to me about. So I have something new in the works based upon what he read on a little sign that I made in my booth. It's interesting how things all kind of go together, but being able to make it available so someone knows what you did is, I think, was a key. So thank you, Brian, because he's the one that told me to put that little sign in my booth. I'm like, really, with your picture? He said, put your picture there because you're not always going to be there. Okay.
Oh, that's great. That is a wonderful story. That's really, really good. A great tip to write down your accomplishments. And even I keep a Word document that I just update, and it's where I put little testimonials, because sometimes testimonials from your clients or people you've taught aren't these big, elaborate, long paragraphs, so they aren't formal as far as like an email. But I literally just got a Facebook message from one of my clients, and it just was just a quick, thanks so much for what you do. You're amazing, and I'm crazy about you, something like that. And just whether I ever use that or not, to have that stashed away where I can read it. Sometimes we need the pep talk and the inspiration and motivation, but writing everything down so that, like you said, whether it's big or small, at some point in time, we can go back, pull it out, and no one knows your accomplishments unless you tell them. So I think that's awesome.
Exactly. Really. And one thing that I will tell that has made that easier for me is there's an app called Lily. Oh no, I call it Lily. It's called Evernote. It has a little elephant on it, and Lily is the elephant. So I call it Lily. But Evernote is a wonderful app because it shows up on my phone and my iPad and my computer, and you can take all these notes. So when I have a brainstorm or I see something, I take a picture and put it in Lily, and then I have it later. So trying to keep all this organized. I don't know how everybody else does it. That's a big challenge for me, is trying to keep everything organized so that I know where to find it. But that's a neat little app if you can find it. It's called Evernote, and it's free.
Oh, that's awesome. I love that. So I need to write that down. I keep running across Evernote and thinking, oh, maybe I should take a whirl, try it. And I haven't yet. So that's a great tip. Is there any other, maybe, since I love that you are a techie geeky sewer. So are there any other computer tips or tricks or apps or software that you would recommend to a sewpreneur?
Well, it depends on what you want to do. Evernote for organization, I highly recommend it. It's almost like having a personal assistant, but she doesn't bring you coffee. So, so I really like using that program. I get really sucked into the computer. And it was funny, someone had posted on Facebook, oh, I spent a whole 2 hours getting my design and combining it and changing color and getting to the computer. And I'm new. Is that hard? Is that unusual? And I said, and I'm thinking to myself, sometimes I can spend all day long just playing on the computer, putting things together, changing colors, and so no, that's not unusual. But you do have to limit your time and not get sucked in like that. As far as it depends on what, as far as
I stumped you because that wasn't on my list of questions.
Oh, you stumped me there. I mean, I'm just trying to think. I mean, I can tell you about apps that I like that are for machine embroidery. There's a free one on iTunes. If you have an iPad, it lets you download designs when you're watching TV. I mean, there's one that's called Air Stitch. I really think that's kind of cool. And I have information on that in my blog. I do try to post some of the machine embroidery stuff, tips. The one thing I can tell you, and this is just coming up quite a bit on my carousals into the Facebook groups, is most of our embroidery machines take USB thumb drives. And the smaller the drive is better, because when it's something's large, it's just imagine having a filing cabinet. You have a filing cabinet that has one drawer, you open the drawer, you look in the filing cabinet, you close the drawer, you're done. If you have one that's 10 drawers, that's a big filing cabinet, you don't know where to look. So the smaller the drive, the better. And they're hard to come by. But if you happen to go to Walgreens or Rite Aid and you go to the cash register and you see all that schmutzy stuff on the counters that you tell the kids not to go near, I picked up 1 gigabyte USB thumb drives that are perfect for my embroidery machine for $4 a piece. So I bought a dozen because I know the Sewing Guild's going to need gifts at Christmas time. And at $4 a piece to give a USB thumb drive to a machine embroiderer, we're happy as a clam because that's the perfect size for us. So,
well, that's great. That's awesome. So here's our last question real quick is with regard to business. I just talked to a sewpreneur who she had a great point is we love to do this stuff. So we'll spend, like you said, all day long and hours working on our craft and doing what we love to do, doing what we're good at. But then there's this whole business aspect of it, the side, business side. And I was telling her just how much I hate paperwork and accounting and taxes and all of these different things. And she made a great point. She said, yes, but if we don't do those things, then what we're doing really just is a hobby if we don't have that business side together. So from a business standpoint and transferring your hobby and your passion into a profitable business, what tip or advice do you have for sewpreneurs out there trying to get their business started?
Try and take 1 day a week, and maybe it was only half a day a week, and just devote it to the business stuff that has to get done. Whether it's putting all your invoices into your QuickBooks or however that is, or deciding your marketing, you know, am I going to put ads in, you know, whatever it is, the stuff that you have to do. Like this past week, I took my half day. I do a half day a week, and it's usually I set up for Thursday afternoons because I don't want to get, I don't want to push it off to Friday because Friday's fun day. So I used to do it on Wednesday, but that's middle of the week, so I changed it to Thursday afternoons. And I start it right after lunch, and I clear off my whole desk from all my sewing stuff that I have there and embroidery stuff, and I just go through whatever has to get done that afternoon. And once I get that, Friday morning is mine. The whole weekend's mine to do whatever I want. And that includes things like redoing your invoices. So if you are in the small business of selling products and you need to create whatever, an order sheet or whatever it is that makes it easier for you to keep organized, devote that afternoon to reworking whatever you're doing, or balancing your checkbook, or making plans, anything that has to relate with business. Keep the fabric, keep the machine embroidery, the threads, the fun stuff out of your Thursday afternoons, and it just seems to really help me keep organized. And I really try not to skip my Thursday afternoons. I make myself stop at about 4:30. So I go from about 1 to 4:30. So it's really only 3.5 hours, but if I can devote that time, I get so much done because I know there's an end.
I think that consistency in that, like you said, not skipping your Thursdays, consistency, and then resisting multitasking. So clear your desk of all the other fabric and the pretty things that will distract you and make you not want to do then maybe not so fun stuff, but really devoting your mind and your time to one thing. I know that's a great tip and works really, really well.
Absolutely.
Well, Lisa, thank you so much. That was great. I really appreciate your time, and I'm sure all of the sewpreneurs out there truly appreciate hearing from you, the inspiration, how you got started, and then the tips. I'm going to look up Evernote right now and get that going. Thanks again, and we will direct everyone to your Facebook page, your blog, and all of the amazing stuff you're doing on social media, as well as your crafty classes. Thank you again. See you soon.
Okay, thank you.
Bye.